Hey everybody, I am Adam AJ Judd with the Pattaya News, and you are here today live on the Next Level podcast. And today we're going to bring to you an exciting lineup telling you exactly how to develop yourself, make yourself better. Is in Thailand. You'll often see with the news, people immediately in our reports, and we've been asked, why did this guy immediately say, yes, I stabbed 7 people? Yes, that was me. I stole from the store. The majority immediately plead guilty. And the reason why is because in Thailand, with almost every case, minus some defamation cases, and I'll talk about defamation in a second, if you plead guilty, your sentence is immediately cut in half. Being a bar manager, a lot of guys ruin their health. I'm perfectly healthy. I just back in December had another health checkup, and somehow, some way in my early 40s at the bar, I would have an average of 12 beers a day. Light beers, like San Miguel Lights. But again, that's 12 beers a day, 10 shots, and 5 or 6 mixed drinks every day. The Indian tourists that we would get in America are very worldly. I feel that a lot of people misinterpret the Indian. There's a complete difference between Indians at a nightclub on Walking Street. Go to an Indian nightclub and watch them throwing out hundreds of thousands of baht in a night. They spend more money than anybody. Once you land an Indian client, they are your most loyal client. They are great to work with. But to land that client, you really need, they will go through that contract. The negotiations can be very intense, but it's not like some other countries where they'll want discounts after them. You know, during COVID, it was monumentally bad here in Pattaya. The government gave like 7,000 baht to people. We would have thousands of people sitting at Bali High Pier waiting for a single meal a day of rice, etc. Beach Road and Jomtien Road would have thousands of people lined up and down the road waiting for donations and waiting for money.
To the Next Level podcast, where me and my guest here share with you our hard-earned wisdom, our deepest and toughest struggles we've gone through that have helped us develop our character. So if you are into self-development and you want to level up your life, this is the place for you. And thank you for tuning in right now. Much love. Today, I'm with a very special guest. His name is AJ, and tell us what you do, AJ.
I do a little of this, little of that. Now, hey everybody, I am Adam. You might have already heard this introduction from videos every day on the Pattaya News. And I am the Chief of Content and co-founder and co-owner of the Pattaya News, and have been doing that since 2017.
2017. Thank you for joining me, AJ. I really appreciate your time, man. And
No problem.
Much love.
Haven't done one of these in a while, so looking forward to it.
How long has it been out of interest?
Since I've done an interview on camera, about a year.
Okay, great stuff.
Yep.
So I've been really practicing my presenting skills, as you know, obviously. So as you're a presenter, can you, I'm putting AJ on the spot right now. He doesn't know I'm asking this. Can you give me your best introduction of how you would either present this show, of how I just done it, or how you would present your podcast?
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Hey, everybody. I am Adam AJ Judd with the Pattaya News, and you are here today live on the Next Level podcast. And today we're going to bring to you an exciting lineup telling you exactly how to develop yourself, make yourself better, tell you a little bit about Thailand, a little bit about that juicy nitty gritty about AJ and who exactly he is, as well as maybe even getting to know Gaz a little bit too, kind of putting him on the other side of the plate. So stay tuned. This is going to be one hell of a show.
Boom! Thank you so much, AJ.
And yes, that was totally improv.
Straight from the dome.
I've done stuff like this for a long time. I haven't done it in quite a while, and I mostly do the background stuff now. I do voiceover still. For a variety of reasons. Some of it is I'm getting various dental work done. Others is we have a different sales team, and just a lot going on in my life that I haven't done this stuff in a while, but I enjoy it.
Mm.
So.
I was looking on your Pattaya News site, social medias, and I haven't seen you do like you was doing those updates and those weekly.
Yes, we changed. I used to do weekly updates and weekly stuff, and instead we decided versus the updates to focus on putting out more daily news videos,
Mm.
and that actually grew our YouTube channel quite a bit.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
at the end of the day, with YouTube, I found that you're often a victim of the algorithm, so to speak. Um, it took a couple years to really start going, and we've only got about 13,500 followers, but we
Nice.
grew about 7,000 of those just in the past like 6 months. Because
Okay.
prior to that, we've been doing YouTube for about 3 years, but really became aggressive about videos, that daily videos, only about a year and a half ago.
Mm.
And it took a while for YouTube to pick up on the algorithm. Now, when you search for Pattaya News, along with Fabulous FM and a couple other news providers, we're one of the very first, if not the first, that pops up. Before, we wouldn't pop up at all. So that's
Mm.
helped us a lot and helped us grow. I might go back with the daily stuff, but it's just we changed direction and just lack of time.
So compare how many posts was you doing on a daily basis before you had
Posts or
that
videos?
boost? Yeah, videos.
It'd be like one every couple of days, and now
Ah.
we try almost religiously to do at least one a day, and it's
Mm.
usually closer to about three
Yeah.
videos a day. Now those are short. That it's not an hour, 2 hour podcast.
Mm.
It's a short dose, usually under 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's not just YouTube. We TikTok, where combined with our English and Thai, we have over 1 million followers.
Mm.
That's our biggest video platform.
Mm.
And we also put them on Reels and Facebook Reels, Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah. So out of interest, how many Facebook posts do you do on a daily basis?
Um, so a lot of times when people think of the Pattaya News, and some of you are familiar, some of you are not, they think of just one aspect of the news. Like they think of just the website, or they think of just the Facebook page, or just the YouTube channel. And we've really got probably 20 plus various platforms,
Mm.
from Thai websites to English websites. We are on every social media platform, and even the more obscure ones. We're on Blue Sky, which is new. We're on Threads. We're on Lemonade, which is TikTok's version of Instagram.
Oh, okay.
We've recently started playing with Snapchat and even the Chinese um, popular Red Note, which is their version of TikTok. Now that hasn't taken off. And of course, the core for us in Thailand is still the website, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. In the past 30 days, we've had over 2 million views on Instagram. And that's really with only like 23,000
Oh,
followers.
wow.
So that's really started to grow for us a lot too. Facebook, I mean, we've got like 880,000 followers combined from the Thai and English.
Mm.
But a lot of times I meet people every day who aren't aware that the Pattaya News even has Thai language. We have 16 languages. On the bottom left corner of the website, you can change to Russian, to German, etc.
Mm.
But the Thai language has its own team and its own news, which is different. So, to answer your question in short, on an average day, I'd say we do about 15 to 20 news articles on the website, and those go on posts on all those social media platforms I just listed.
Yeah.
So one post for each. So you're talking over 100 posts a day.
Mm.
But we have a team. It's not just me.
Yeah. Share a little bit about your team and how many team members you have.
So it's probably better to start with how we began.
Okay,
You
go for
know,
it.
it began in 2017 as a hobby. Just
2017.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've always been a news person. I'm not a journalist by trade. We can get into that later. But, at the very end of 2017, myself and my business partner basically said, you know, there's a gap in the news here in Pattaya. It's either an aggregator, which is just a fancy term for copying and pasting other people's news, which we
Mm.
did used to do, being transparent, but we don't now. And there was news that basically just wasn't news and just tried to sell condos. There's no problem in trying to have advertisers and selling condos, but if you have no news and that's your whole platform, that's the issue. So we started that as a hobby. And it was just me, just really a Facebook page back then. No YouTube, no TikTok, nothing. And we continued on in that hobby because at that time I was in the entertainment industry in Pattaya, a bar manager, calling it out as it is.
Where was that, if you don't mind sharing?
That was on the infamous Soy 6.
Yes,
Yep. And,
legendary.
Yep, and that was for 5 years.
Wow.
And yeah, interesting job transition there, but you know, I don't hide anything.
Yeah.
And anyways, so I didn't see that as a long-term gig. And if anybody does, by the way, speaking of next level, you may want to re-examine your priorities right there, baby. In terms of, you know, that it was a hobby, and then COVID hit in 2020. And I know COVID hit everybody different. You've got viewers from around the world, and people that will watch this are from different places. But in Thailand, although we didn't have a hard stay-at-home lockdown, everything shut down. And there was very little government support. And there were rules, like many countries, probably like the UK, that were changing every single day. And up till 2020, the news was a hobby. When COVID hit, it became a serious business. One, because all of the bars and everything else that were being used from their income were shut in Thailand off and on for almost 2 years. A lot longer than Western countries. It really took them a long time to get the bar industry going again. It was basically shut, other than a few small openings here and there, pretending to be restaurants, from about St. Patrick's Day 2020 until the middle of 2022. So the news became a primary product, but more importantly, people began to really we quadrupled our viewership during COVID because I basically sorted through all the bullshit. Pardon my French. I can curse on this,
Go
right?
for it.
Okay.
Crack on.
I know it's YouTube, so, but I think as long as you don't curse in the first 8 seconds or
Oh, is that
something,
it?
you're okay. Yeah. Anyways.
Enlighten me. I ain't got a clue.
Anyways, so long story short, and without rambling, we sorted through all the bullshit and all the daily rules and really told people what was going on every day, what they could and could not do, what the government was doing, what was closed. We had crazy rules like the beach closed, etc. I think that happened in the UK too. But anyways, so we really grew our audience. And as we came out of COVID at 2022, going into 2023, as you're well aware, we finally got began to focus on a proper sales team, which we never had before, and started growing and developing our background team. And what I mean by that is finance team, video editors. We've had reporters since 2019. People ask, where do you get your news, the photos, videos? Believe it or not, I swear, that's actually, at least everything local, not national, that's our own team, videoing, recording, all those videos that you see every day of the actual footage on the Pattaya News, that is our reporters out there in the field, not me personally. I could go, but why? And I don't want, yeah.
How do they get their tips to, that's news, so how do they?
Right. That's a good question. So what we film locally is our team. And when I say our team, some of them are full-time and part-time, but a lot of them are freelancers, which is common in the news industry. They're paid from what's called a press pool, which is a group of people in the press that we basically pay freelancers to provide us with news, and they provide it to a variety of newspapers.
Oh, okay.
And how they get their tips, there's different ways. Now, pretty much 24 hours a day, there's freelancers at the Pattaya police station and other police stations, as well as local hospitals. They ride along or ride behind the rescue teams. Here in Pattaya, we have something called Sawang Borabun, which is a volunteer rescue team at the local temple. And they have radios that communicate, and some of our freelancers also have radios, so they get those tips. And for things like city events and city hall, we're invited to those. So basically the tips are because it's a different relationship than the West. It's a very cordial relationship with law enforcement, police, and officials, where here they want you to ride along. They want reporters, mainly because they want to They want to show what they're doing to
Yeah.
save face. But yeah, so that's how we get our tips.
Interesting. So right now, how many estimation? How many staff members are you working with?
About 14 on salary and maybe another dozen or so freelancers.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. So before we get any further, there's a few things that we're gonna not talk about. Can you talk about those?
Yeah. So, in terms of like not talking about things, one reason I don't do interviews a lot is because people want to talk about real controversial news stories or certain topics that Thailand doesn't like talked about. Um, and I wanted to explain a little bit about, I love to talk about those things. And a cheap plug, every Tuesday from 3 to 5 at the Rage Ringside Cafe at the Rage Fight Academy behind the under construction Grand Solaire condo on Soy Norway or Soy Tapera 15 in Jomtien.
Mm.
I hold an informal coffee meet and greet chat session every week. It's usually about a dozen plus expats talking about news and events in Pattaya, but I can be more off the record there.
Mm.
But anything on video or anything on record, the reason there's certain topics and things you can't talk about in Thailand, Thailand's press is very different than Western press. These are questions we get all the time at the news. So let me explain a couple of things. And in terms of being different than the Western press, number one, people always ask, why are the suspects always blurred? You should identify
Name
this
and
person.
shame.
I want to know who this scammer is. Thailand passed a law in 2022 called the Personal Data Protection Act. Now, it's there's a lot of misinformation about what that law is, and it was never meant to protect suspects or to impede press. It was really meant for big companies and their corporate data so that they don't
Mm.
lose stuff like when you enter information at a bank or on a website to make a purchase, that they don't abuse your data. But
Okay.
unfortunately, the law was a bit vague as it was written, as many laws are in Thailand. So because of that, identifying and showing somebody's face as a suspect in a crime before a Thai judge has stated that they are guilty can cause problems with that law and cause lawsuits.
Mm.
So that's why any licensed press, and you'll see this on Thai news all the time, will cover up suspects' faces in crimes unless a judge has released the verdict in the trial, or if the suspect has admitted to the crime fully. So if somebody is just a suspect, and when I say suspect, because some people are like, oh, you used the word allegedly. You said this guy allegedly stabbed somebody in the street. And then there's a video clearly showing the person stabbing someone in the street. But again, under Thai law, it's alleged until a judge officially states that they are guilty. It may be clear to us that it's guilty,
Yeah.
but again, it's always alleged until a judge states that it's guilty. So that's one of the most popular questions, is why we
Mm.
blur suspects. Number two, most popular question is why we don't cover a lot of what is happening after somebody gets arrested. If people say, "Oh, you don't do a lot of follow up," we do when we can get it. I would love to get more follow up, but the truth is, in Thailand and quite frankly in the U.S., I've heard this doesn't happen in the U.K. too much, but in the U.S. and here, mediation is preferred to going down the route of court. And that's just a fancy word, obviously, for bring both parties involved in the problem to the police station or the court, sit them down in a room together, and have them
Mm.
come to an agreement, financial or otherwise, to save time for court and officials and law enforcement. But a lot of times those are NDA private agreements that are between both individuals that they sign paperwork for to not release. Again, that's common in many other Western countries. I
Mm.
don't think in the UK. But so in many cases, no, we don't hear about it because it's private. There is no jury in Thailand, and the courts are mostly closed to the press.
There's no jury.
There's no jury. It's between 1 to 3 judges, depending on the seriousness of the trial.
Ah.
And the courts, again, are mostly closed to the press. So as a result of that, we can't even get in. And what's normally released to the press about a suspect in a crime is their initial plea, guilty or not guilty, whether or not they were released on bail, and then the verdict. And sometimes cases move faster here than people think they do because of mediation, but sometimes cases take years and years. Another thing some of your viewers might find interesting is in Thailand, you'll often see with the news people immediately in our reports, and we've been asked, why did this guy immediately say, yes, I stabbed 7 people? Yes, that was me. I stole from the store. In the West, and maybe the UK, they almost always plead not guilty immediately. Is that right?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, a good proportion. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Here, the majority immediately plead guilty. And the reason why is because in Thailand, with almost every case, minus some defamation cases, and I'll talk about defamation in a second, if you plead guilty, your sentence is immediately cut in half because it's seen as apologizing and taking responsibility, ties into Thai culture. Very different from the West. So if you say, yes, I stabbed that person, rather than get 14 years, you're immediately cut to 7. And that's usually cut further for good behavior and for other things like that too. So that's why so many criminals, especially repeat criminals, it's got positives and negatives, immediately plead guilty in Thailand.
Yeah.
Finally, defamation and why there's certain topics that we can't talk about. I can't tell you how often people email or message or even call me about, this landlord ripped them off, or this business, or they got scammed, or this Thai lady caused this problem, and they want to post it everywhere and post it on the news. You can't do that in Thailand. Naming and shaming in Thailand is not a thing. It is in America. Believe me, I know.
Most of the rest of the world.
Yeah, most of the Western world.
Okay.
But most of Asia here,
really?
China, and a lot of the Arab countries, like for instance, Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, have very similar laws to Thailand, in some cases stricter about defamation. In Thailand, defamation can be both criminal and civil.
Can you explain the meaning of defamation?
So defamation, talking negatively or ruining somebody else's rep, street rep, whatever you want to call it.
And that's not even businesses, that's anyone.
It's anyone, correct.
Anyone.
Now, how Thailand wants you to deal with things is Thailand has so many different agencies and bureaucracies and different paths to resolve things. And yes, they're slow, but they want you to deal with that. They don't want you to deal with it by posting, my landlord from my condo is an asshole and took my deposit. You can't do that in Thailand. And here's why. Because again, defamation in Thailand, number one, can be civil and criminal. In most countries, it's only civil. Here, you can go to jail for years. In fact, the crimes for the criminal penalties, for defamation are actually worse than many crimes like assault, theft, robbery, etc., because it's treated that seriously in Thailand. Number two, and this is the tricky one that a lot of people not familiar with Thailand don't know, and I can't tell you how many people get themselves in trouble over this. Defamation in most Western countries is based on whether or not it was true. If you say something that was true, like this person, this landlord ripped you off, and it's true, and the landlord admits they ripped you off, then you think that's okay to post. It's not in Thailand. And here's why. Because in Thailand, defamation, and there are some exceptions, and it's eased up a bit, but overall, defamation is really treated in a court of law on whether or not you made a second party look bad in front of an unrelated third party, i.e., posted it online, told a huge group of people about your problem, etc. How they want you to deal with it is deal with it with the proper agencies or with a lawyer, with police, with legal, with various factors, with juristic offices for condos, whatever it might be. They don't want you to name and shame online. That's a lot of people don't realize defamation can get you in a lot of trouble here. And it's why there's a lot of stories that we can't necessarily cover unless I'm happy to cover stories of scams and things like that, but people have to file police reports. Police have to agree to release the information to the press. Um, Police here like a chance to investigate first. And that makes sense,
Mm,
especially because sometimes if you reveal things too early, you can actually hurt the investigation. So it's just a very different thought process.
mm. Lovely. Thank you for sharing that, AJ.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so let's get personal with you
Okay.
and let's go back into your childhood and share with me who and what the young version of AJ was all about.
Well, the young version of AJ is actually quite a lot like the old. I'm not that old. I'm in my early, coming into my mid 40s.
Yeah.
I've lived in Thailand since 2014. I moved here in my early 30s. I
Yeah.
started coming here in my 20s. Um, in
What year?
retrospect, I think that's kind of young, but it worked out for me.
What year was that?
That was 2010.
2010. You first. Who did you come with?
Me, myself, and I.
Nice.
Yes.
How was that?
It was scary, quite honestly. So my first trip to Thailand was also my first trip out of America. It was, as many Americans know, a lot of Americans don't travel. I don't know the percentages. That's argued about a lot anyway, but the majority of Americans never leave America because, quite frankly, I don't know. Have you ever been to America?
No, it
It,
is on the top of my list.
it's so big. There's so much to do. There's so much
Yeah.
diversity in places between Hawaii, Alaska, Florida,
Mm,
Maine, New Hampshire, Vegas. Uh, for many people, everything they want to go to, and I haven't even been to a lot of America, is there.
mm,
Um, so very few Americans leave America. And the ones that do mostly go to Mexico or Canada, visit places nearby or some of
mm.
the islands.
Just out of interest, how many states have you visited?
I don't know.
No,
I'd
just
say
a guess.
probably 20.
Got you.
And not that many, mostly the eastern
Mm.
states, although I've been to California, but very little of
Mm.
the west. Um,
And where was you born?
I was born in a little place called Rye, near Portsmouth, New Hampshire. New Hampshire is basically known for being cold, having a lot of mountains, but Portsmouth is known for its lobster industry, which is what my uncle is in. That's a boring piece of info, but I thought I'd share. Anyways, I was born in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and I lived there till I was about 5 or 6, and then moved to Florida with my mother and father, who are both still alive. They had what we call, and maybe we call this in the UK, a May-December relationship. They have a 20-year age difference.
Okay.
My father is now in his mid-80s, healthy.
What was that
thankfully.
saying that you just said?
May-December relationship.
May, December.
Yeah, in America, it's just a term for a significant age gap
Okay.
between a relationship between partners.
Oh, okay.
And that's common here in Thailand. But
Especially Pattaya.
yeah, 30, 40-year-old age gaps, but not in America.
Mm,
So my parents have a 20-year age gap. My father's now in his mid-80s. My mother's in her mid-60s.
mm. How did they meet, out of interest?
I don't know.
No, really.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think she was a waitress, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
But significant age difference.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I lived in Florida, Sarasota. And quite honestly, Sarasota has a very similar temperature and environment to Pattaya. And that's one reason I really like Pattaya, by the way. And I lived there, until like 13. And then my parents got divorced, and my mother immediately found a new stepfather, and they moved to Texas, and I went with them. And I did not get along with my stepfather,
Mm.
and I moved
Why?
away. Why? Uh, my stepfather and I were just very different people. He's passed away now. He had a stroke, unfortunately.
Okay.
I was young, and I didn't realize that he was trying to help me.
Mm.
And both my birth parents, and I know my mother's probably going to watch this, but both my birth parents are not disciplinarians per se, are more relaxed in parenting. And I was allowed, I mean, people, let me give you an example here. Those of you who are 80s and 90s babies probably remember we were the last generation before internet and social media and phones and everything blew up. I used to have a pager in high school. I mean, who remembers that? So being that last generation, it was true. We were really allowed to roam the streets all day when we weren't in school. You know, my mom would say, be back when the sun, she's probably watching this laughing, be back when the sun goes down, um, at 6 p.m. for dinner. But it's 9 in the morning on the summer. Get the fuck out of the house and go play all day. That used to be what you would do. And I only mention that because that was my parents' style of parenting. My stepfather and later my stepmother.
Sorry, I've got a cool little bit of information. My uncle used to say to me, Gaz and Louis, go and play on the M6. No, the M6 is a big motorway in England. Like when we was being naughty.
Did you mean that to actually go play or to go get yourself, get the
That's
fuck
what
out?
He was yeah. Carry on.
So yeah, it's the point to that story is I had very relaxed parents, and a lot of parents at that time were that way. My stepfather was not. My stepfather grew up on a farm. My stepfather grew up in a very disciplined environment. My stepfather was into gardening. He had very unique punishments. One of his unique punishments, which I hate to this day, but I don't have children. I don't want children. But if I ever had children, one of his favorite punishments was sentences. And it works. If you did something wrong, you have to write like 1,000 sentences. And the sentence would be, I, Adam Justin Judd, on November 15th date, made a grievous error when I decided to skip this particular session of my school at name of high school and disappointed my parents, my teachers, blah, blah, blah. And you have to write that 1,000 times.
Interesting. I like that.
A lot of people do. And I just gave some people ideas. I mean, it's, I know this may be controversial in this day and age. They were also not shy. I was never abused as a kid. I was never beat up, but the belt, I grew up in a generation when if you fucked up to a degree, yes, a belt was used. It was used in a mature and non long-term hurtful manner.
Yeah, because you was misbehaving.
Correct.
Yeah, I remember
getting no smacks in the face, etc. But
I remember getting a pinch and what did you say? Smacks in the face.
I never got that.
I got one or two.
Yeah, but I did get the belt.
Slipper.
In Texas, to this day, a lot of people don't realize Texas still allows, if you mess up in school, and I took this a few times in school, mostly for skipping class. I was mostly a good student, but they still allow you to get a paddle and a number of licks. And I know that's unheard of in many other countries, but yes, some states still allow that. If you sign a waiver, you can still get it. Just a crazy thing.
Wow. So the reason why let's just go back a little bit, writing the note down, because your stepfather is letting you know why he's disappointed in you.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It's just not like you've been naughty. Do you know what I mean? There's explaining and getting it through to you. Correct. Mentally.
It would be like a Saturday. And in retrospect, I understand that he was trying to help me. At that time, though, as the prior punishment for my parents were, sorry, Mom, half-ass groundings or things that didn't really work long term. Both my stepfather and my stepmother, another punishment he made me do, which he knows I hate, and I still hate to this day, is gardening. He loved gardening. He was very passionate about it. But if anybody's ever gardened, he had all these peas, and you would spend 6 hours shucking peas and taking all the peas out of a pod. And that'd be my day off. So anyways, I know that's probably not why people are listening to the podcast, is hear about me shucking peas back in the day. But I didn't get along with my stepfather. In retrospect, he was just trying to help me. So all this fits together in an overall story, staying on track. At 15, my parents were network marketers and real estate agents. My mother still is. And they were always out of town. And it was fairly common, fairly common for me to be watching my younger brother, who's 5 years younger. I have an older half sister, but she had moved out by that time. And they were out of town because they would always go to conferences. So yes, even from about the age of 11 or 12, I would be alone for the weekend watching my brother. And that was okay. I've always been mature beyond my age.
Yeah, and you got on with him?
Me and my brother get along. We're not close, but we're not. If this makes sense, I'm not close with any of my family anymore. but we're not enemies. We talk
Mm,
online. We don't. People are like, AJ, you haven't been back to America in over a decade. I talk to my family still. I'm
mm,
okay with them. I'm just not. We've never been a close knit family. So
mm,
even if I was in America, it's not like we'd be hanging out.
mm. Ha- Have you ever, have they ever come over here?
No, but my mother is planning on it and keeps
Oh,
saying she is.
wow.
However, she has yet to retire. Supposedly, this year, in her mid 60s, she's planning on retiring. I'm looking at the camera. Hi, mom.
Talking to her.
Um, because she keeps saying she wants to. She just came back from Costa Rica.
Oh,
She's been to Sweden, which I have Swedish background.
yeah,
I don't want to get off track too much,
yeah.
but she's never been to Thailand. She would like to come.
Why should, sorry, why should she? Sell it to her.
My mother loves wine. There's a lot of drinking here.
What would you
No,
do with her?
we go drinking.
Soy six.
No, I don't know about that. Um, so yeah, so anyways, the point is they were network marketers. They were out of town a lot. And when I was 15, me and my friends decided it would be a good idea to take the family car and go on a drive around Dallas, Texas. And we didn't get caught until we got back. And we were parking the car, and my dumbass friend, I wasn't driving, he was, accidentally hit the accelerator wrong in the garage and drove through the back of the garage into the laundry room and took out the back wall of our home. So me being 15 and stupid, we tried to hide it with some boxes, and then that didn't work. And so after that I was on a plane back to Florida with my real father, who I lived with for a little bit in Florida. I went to Knoxville, Tennessee briefly, but then I was mostly in Florida
Let-
until my 20s.
let's go back to the reaction of when your parents came back and
They were done. It was, you're going back to your father.
did
Uh,
they hit the roof?
yeah, but it was more of a, it was more of that. This is it. There's no sentences. There's no punishment.
Mm,
There's no belt.
typical,
It's
yeah.
just pack your shit. We're calling your father, whether he wants you or
Oh,
not, and you're going back to Florida.
also, that's quite calm about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I went to live with my dad. Um, Here's something that I don't think I've ever revealed on camera. And I went to live and I met a girl in Sarasota, Florida when I was 16, and I got engaged at 16. Not serious. It was one of those late teen things. And that lasted about 2 years. And
Mm.
people always ask, AJ, have you ever been in a serious relationship? AJ, are you gay? Because I talk with my hands a lot and the way I talk. And no, I'm not. I have many gay friends. I'm a huge supporter of LGBTQ rights. I lean, uh, I'm moderate politically. Like, I'm a big supporter of guns, but I'm also a big supporter of LGBTQ. I'm not a political guy. I have friends from both sides of the spectrum. Um,
Think for yourself.
yeah, so I don't talk about politics much because I'm not political. But I got engaged and that didn't work out. Then I went after the engagement didn't work out. I went back to live with my mother briefly in
Let's
Tennessee.
hit a little bit on that relationship. Was you in love with her?
No, I don't
No.
think I've ever been in love.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay, wow.
I was engaged again briefly in my early 20s.
Yeah.
So I've been engaged twice. I had one serious year-long relationship before I moved here that some of you are probably familiar with an American girl. Um, and then I decided to choose Thailand over her.
What do you think stops you from falling in love with someone?
Strong will.
Okay.
Um, Maybe not, never found the right one,
Mm,
busy with work. Um, I'm a very independent person, very,
mm.
very independent. It's why I don't have kids. I knew from like when I was telling people when I was 14, I don't want to get kids, and I don't think I ever want to be married.
Okay.
The latter, I don't know. That could change, but I like being alone. I'm never lonely, ever,
Great to
ever.
hear. So you have strong self-control.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the reason I hesitated on that is sometimes I am spontaneous. And I think more of the problem with that is that I know there's times when I don't want to do things. And if I had the responsibility, you could even call it selfish, but I call it the fact that I know I wouldn't be a good father because I wasn't a good boyfriend. I wasn't a good fiance. And I'm also adult enough to be able to admit that I wasn't. I think a lot
Okay.
of people aren't. People are afraid to say they were wrong. I make mistakes every day. That's another thing with the news. Um, people are like, oh, AJ, he's narcissistic. I've heard it all. AJ, he thinks he's perfect. He's a know-it-all. Absolutely not. I talk a lot, but I listen a lot. I read a lot. I inform a lot. I'm wrong every day. I make mistakes every day.
Mm,
I probably make more mistakes than anybody in Pattaya, and that's the reason why I've managed to survive here.
mm.
Um,
Because you're putting so much out, though, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And I think it's important that people realize that they're not fucking perfect. They realize what their flaws are. And there's ways to improve those flaws, but I realize to me that it's not so much a flaw, but I am a strong supporter of being independent.
Mm.
I yes, I'm a social person. I would say some people say I'm an extrovert, some say I'm an introvert. I would say I'm an ambivert, which is a mixture of both, depending. And I've really started to come to terms with that in recent years. There's days where I want to be left the fuck alone. I want to go back home alone. I want to turn off my phone and I want to watch bad horror movies. There's days where I want to go to the club still, talk to people, socialize, and I go between both of those.
I'm
And
with you. I feel the
yeah,
same as well.
so yeah, I would say that at the end of the day, I'm more of an ambivert than an extrovert, and it's just who I am, and it's kind of the path that I came down, and those relationships failed, and here in Thailand, here's something that's different. Having been here since 2014, I have never had a serious relationship with a Thai woman
Wow.
ever, and that's so unusual for Thai, and it's probably why a lot of people say, "Oh, AJ must be gay." Well, let me ask you, have you ever seen me have a serious relationship with a man or a lady boy?
So,
No, and even if I was gay, I would have no problem saying it.
mm,
I just like being single. I walk a lot. People sometimes tease, oh, I see AJ walking, walking, walking. Yeah, well, that's how I keep this wonderful slim frame. Um,
so to cut you, do
yeah.
you stick with the 3-day rule that guys say
I
with
very rarely,
women?
quite frankly, take girls at all anymore. I very rarely look into relationship stuff. I focus primarily these days on work, and my hobbies,
Yeah,
which we can talk about. I have quite a few hobbies.
yeah.
Um, and quite frankly, I know because of my schedule and because of how I am that I just am not interested at this time in my life in any sort of a relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't need a lot of guys, girls, people around the world, like somebody there. I have friends of mine that they wouldn't know what to do if they didn't have somebody at home when they came home at night. I'm the opposite. I look forward to
Mm.
going back to an empty house. I look forward, here's a visual for you, to walking around naked in my home. I look forward to the privacy of being able to do whatever the hell I want to do without having children at home, without having a wife. Again, no disrespect to my friends or anybody that has
Yes.
those. I absolutely, I have friends who their entire life is their children. I have nothing but respect and love for them.
As long as they're happy with that.
They're perfectly,
Yeah.
and I have so many friends have said, oh, AJ, if you had kids, you would change your mind. I don't think so because I know myself very well, and I believe that I would take care of the children. But I
Mm.
believe that knowing my personality, I'd end up down the road running away from it. I'd end up not paying child support. I'd end up focusing on myself again, being selfish. I'm just being honest,
Mm.
versus their needs. And I believe that the adult decision is to do what would be best for any potential children and myself by staying child free.
Excellent. I really appreciate you being so open and
Mhm.
authentic with what you just said.
Mm.
So, just out of interest, what's the most dates or the longest period of time you've been meeting someone in Pattaya?
About 6 months.
Okay.
It wasn't a serious relationship. I've never had anything that I would call something serious
Mm.
from there. During COVID, a lot of people, as I spoke about earlier, it was monumentally bad here in Pattaya. And when I say monumentally bad, yes, the government gave like 7,000 baht to people. Um, but that is, for those of you not familiar, that's about 220 to 250 US dollars.
Mm.
Not a lot. Um, Here in Pattaya during COVID, we would have thousands of people sitting at Bali High Pier waiting for a single meal a day of rice, etc. Beach Road and Jomtien Road would have thousands of people lined up and down the road, um, waiting for donations and waiting for money.
Like the
So
end of the world.
uh,
Was it like the end of the world?
yeah, it's. I know you weren't here during that time, so I could walk down Second Road. And I know some people watching this probably were here. I could walk down Second Road in the middle of the road, and 98% of businesses, even the 7-Elevens, were all shuttered, closed. Nothing was open at the peak of COVID. And the peak of COVID here was different. In 2020, we shut for 3 months, and they tried something. And by the way, this does relate to your question about somebody living with me. I'll get back to that. So in the peak of COVID, for 3 months in 2020, we shut down, as I said, on St. Patrick's Day and of 2020, March 17th. And we reopened 3 months later because Thailand tried COVID zero, like Australia tried and China and a couple other places, where they were hoping to keep it out till it went away worldwide. Spoiler, that didn't happen. We eventually had to deal with it. As I said from the start, I was never a fan of COVID zero.
Mm.
But we reopened for a little bit after.
COVID
After
zero was just
COVID
shut
zero
everything.
was hard shutting of borders, quarantine for 3 weeks for
Yeah.
anybody coming in hotel rooms, etc. And anybody who caught COVID had to be quarantined for weeks, trying to keep it out of Thailand entirely.
Yeah.
At first, they thought it was a good idea because in 2020, we reopened in like July, and people were watching, including in the UK, were watching videos of us from the UK and US, where all the bars and nightclubs and everything was shut down. Thailand was one of the only places in the world at that time, and it was a cool time to be here, to be fair, that the clubs and bars were open, but nobody could get in. Some people literally went through the agony of 3-week quarantines to get into Thailand, because their home country, they thought this would go on for years. It did. But then comes the bad news. So yeah, we were open. It was cool. Bars were open, but there was nobody here.
Mm.
And going back to, I could walk down Second Road because this is in 2021. I could walk down Second Road and feel like I was Will Smith and I Am Legend, that I was the only living person around and there was nothing else open and no traffic, no cars, nothing.
Mm.
Because at the end of January in 2021, COVID finally broke out here because of mainly migrants coming over the border illegally, which they were always warned, no matter how tight their quarantine was, that was going to be the problem. And it was.
Mm.
So finally, 6 months after the rest of the world, Thailand caught COVID badly, same as Australia. And so we shut down again in 2021, just as the rest of the world was opening. And Thailand stayed shut down from February of 2021 till basically December of that year. Bars were closed almost the entire year. And they were constantly opening and closing and reopening malls and restaurants, etc. In the middle of summer, a lot of expats left. They went back because then the UK, etc., was starting to open again. You guys got over the silliness of a Scotch egg or whatever that bullshit was that you guys could eat at a pub with a beer. I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, it was a miserable time. So I had somebody stay with me for a couple of months, like a lot of people did, but it wasn't a serious relationship.
Mm.
And that period also drew home to me, and it's all coming back here, that I don't like living with anybody. I like living alone. I like my privacy. I like being independent. And I have my whole life. And so then in 2022, Thailand started reopening, but we had this silly thing for 6 months. I briefly mentioned it earlier, where bars had to pretend they were restaurants. So everybody's there getting drunk and doing shots and shit, but there's some peanuts there. So it's a restaurant because you're having some peanuts. Like bull fucking shit. So yeah.
Okay, tell me why you chose to move to Thailand.
So I never chose to move to Thailand.
Ah,
That's actually a good way you phrase that question because we talked about this beforehand. I first started visiting Thailand, like many do, as I said, in my 20s, because of Thailand's entertainment. I worked well, I haven't actually talked about this on this video. So, what I worked primarily in the US for 15 years was I worked as a middle manager at Best Buy, which is a retail electronics retailer. I'm not sure what's a big electronics retailer in the UK that sells TVs
maybe.
and stuff.
Oh, what's that? It's something with a C. Comet. Oh, something like that. Yeah, I can't remember.
Um,
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Here in Thailand, we have Power Buy.
Maybe like PC World or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
carry on it.
Yeah, here we have Power Buy,
Yeah.
which is very similar. So for those familiar with Thailand and Power Buy, it's basically the US version of Power Buy. And I was a middle manager. I started working there at 16 off and on, and I stayed there until I moved to Thailand full time at 33.
Okay.
And I'll get to that. And I started as just a stock shelf guy. People are like, "Oh, AJ talks about this great fat." No, it's I was a middle manager, but I worked in operations, which mainly did HR. I was like the good HR guy. I was the guy that did the hiring, and that goes back to my presentation, why I'm comfortable on camera,
Ah.
comfortable talking. I was the one who did a lot of the team meetings, a lot of the trainings, a lot of the people development. I tried to stay away from being the bad HR guy, that like fires people or Americans. I'm going to make a joke here, again, not being political, but I wasn't trying to be a Doge in America and demanding people give us their 5 things that they did this week,
Okay.
like Elon Musk is doing to people in America now. But I was the good guy. And I was also a sales manager for a bit. Anyways, that all goes to the fact that I did that for a long time, but I was in a well-known role there where I've always liked going out. I've always liked clubs. I started clubbing when I was like 17, when I was like 14. And it surprises people when I say this because I know I first impression and way I talk with my hands, always kind of nerdy. Yeah, I'm definitely a nerd too. I like RPGs. I like video games. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons. But hey, catch 22. I love hip hop. I love clubs. I still love drinking. Sorry, business partners. But I moderate myself. And I know you've had some people on this before talking about moderation and soberness. I think that's important to Pattaya. And
Mm,
it's a lot of why I've lasted here is moderation, not going out and doing 40 shots every single day.
mm,
Those guys are usually gone within a year or two here.
mm. How often do you go out?
2 or 3 nights a week now,
Oh yeah, fair
about the
play.
same as the US.
Just out of interest, where do you go?
I like walking street.
Yeah.
And that is amazing to many people because most expats here don't like walking street. I still like clubs. I still like iBar, Republic,
Mm,
Flex, 808. Most of where I go now is the discos.
okay.
But I also do a lot of, when I say go out, I do a lot of cocktail carts. I do a lot of people would joke and say no insult meant here. The Russian or the old British expat. No offense to anybody thing, because I do it myself, where I'll buy beers from 7-Eleven and sit on the beach. It's not a cost thing. It's just enjoying the air and the beach and what's
Mm,
going on.
mm,
So yeah, just kind of looping it back from there. Back in America, people started to recognize me. I started running into my staff because especially in my last 7 years with Best Buy, the role in the Fairfax area was I was working between multiple stores at times, and I was doing trainings for hundreds of employees, presentations on training and development at stores around the DC area. So I would keep running into people I knew. And Best Buy had very strict rules for people that you basically had to immediately leave the bar or club. I'm like, oh, this is getting so old. I can't go out anymore. So I'm like, I just want to go and party somewhere and have a good time and not have anything on my back. So I did some
so
Google searches. I'm like, you know what? I've never left America. This is in my late 20s, as I mentioned earlier. Let's just, on my vacation, let's get on a plane and let's fly to Thailand. Let's go to Bangkok. That's what most people think, by the way, of course,
just
is
sorry,
Bang.
just to rewind a little bit when you said that they have a procedure that if you meet anyone in the club, you have to go home.
Yeah, because you're basically their boss and you're holding them accountable. And it can cause, there's a lot of HR, and HR's changed a lot in the decade I've been gone.
I
I
understand
was
now.
there before the whole DEI thing, and now the DEI thing is now on the way out. So it was there for like 10 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically you're not allowed to fraternize with staff. People blow you.
Sort
And
of like,
that's common in a lot of places, including the military, etc. That's why they have their own clubs, their own places.
yeah, this reminded me of, say, if like you seen like your school teacher in the club or something like that, maybe.
Dude, I remember seeing my school teacher in the grocery store and I thought I saw a celebrity. Yeah, stuff like that.
Back to Thailand.
So yeah, so I said let's book a flight and let's go. So 2010, April, mid-April, and here's something fun coming for you guys. Without knowing anything about Thailand, I booked a flight for 2 weeks, and I did a little bit of research online, and a lot of people told me Pattaya was a better place for entertainment and nightlife than Bangkok. After doing some research, I agreed. I skipped Bangkok, and I ended up not going to Bangkok for 10 years.
No way.
I didn't go to Bangkok till just before COVID.
That's the level of partying Pattaya has.
So I arrive in Pattaya. On April 13th. Those of you who know Thailand know this date. I didn't know this date. I didn't research this part. April 13th, 2010. And what's going on? Do you know? Songkran. I walk out of my hotel and somebody hits me in the face with water. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm just on holiday. And then I'm like, okay. And I have my passport on me and everything. I'm like, oh, this fucking sucks. So I go up, I change, I come out, and I come out with fresh clothes. I thought maybe this is just some weird Thailand thing. I get hit in the face again by water, ice water. Like something weird is going on here. And so then I asked people and I found out what Songkran was. And here's another thing that makes me different than most expats. Sorry, guys. I like Songkran. And probably because it was my first trip, so I've got fond memories of it. I understand it's so divisive, but I like Songkran. And my first trip, despite enjoying Songkran, despite being in Pattaya, I would describe it as okay, like a 5 or 6 out of 10.
Okay.
I had a lot of culture shock because it was my first trip out of America. I was a bit afraid to try the Thai food, so I mostly ate at KFC and McDonald's. Sorry.
As you still do, I think, isn't it?
Sometimes I eat more Thai food than I used to.
Got you. The value for money when you first come here?
When I first came here, it was all right. I didn't spend a lot of money. I only spent maybe 5,000 to 7,000 baht a day.
About $100, $120,
about 150.
150. Okay.
And I was mostly spending my money on drinking and drinking.
Yeah.
Drinking.
Wink, wink.
And then, so I wasn't sure I was going to come back immediately. I was kind of thinking maybe I'll travel to a couple different areas. And then a friend I met on my first trip invited me back in October. And I came in October out of Songkran, and I really fell in love the second trip. And so then I came almost another dozen times over a 5-year period.
And what was your traveling itinerary?
About every 4 months, straight to Pattaya.
Just Pattaya, nowhere else.
And people are like, wait a minute, you worked for retail, yet you got the time off. Because I had seniority. I'd been with the company a long time. And the company gave me about 6 weeks. They've changed this. Now it's like 2 weeks. But I had generous time, especially for America, off. I got about 6 weeks a year off. So I split that into about 10 days here, 10 days there, 10 days there. I know in the UK, it's very normal to get about 30 days off. But it's very rare in America, Japan, some other countries. So anyways, I would come about every 4 months. And I would fly all the way from America. The flight never bothered me. It bothers a lot of people. I treated the flight as part of the vacation.
How many hours out of interest is it?
From the East Coast, from Washington, D.C., door to door, including layovers, it was about 36 hours door to door.
And that's direct flight?
No.
That's
depending on the way I went with both. Depending if I would go to Korea or Japan, or depending on if I would go, which I did more often, to Dubai and then to here. There was a layover and a stop on both sides. But there was still at least one very long, like 14, 15-hour flight.
Yeah. Well worth it, though.
Yeah, it was. So how I ended up moving here, which I never meant to move here, was in 2014, around Songkran again. Best Buy went through a restructure, and which They probably needed to. I was overpaid. I was making six figures as a middle manager at Best Buy. And from that was a great personal perspective, but as a business perspective, it was a bit high for what you should pay middle managers.
Mm.
And so they restructured, laid off a lot of their middle managers. And I wasn't initially laid off. I was given an option because I'd been there so long and had seniority, and I guess they liked me, to either accept and tell me in the comments, tell me what you would do. Option one was to take a year of pay, again, very generous severance package, 1 year of entire pay minus taxes, of course, and a lump sum, and say goodbye. Or option two, to take at that time I had, as I said, more of a non-customer facing HR operational training position, is to take a direct customer facing role again as like a customer service manager or direct sales manager. And I just didn't want to deal with people screaming and yelling at me about my TV being broken and shit again.
So to take a big pay cut.
I don't know about big, but it would be taking a pay cut. Yeah.
Mm.
Big depends on perspective, but yeah, probably like 30,000 US a year.
Okay.
Or take an entire year of pay in a lump sum.
Over 100 grand.
And I've been there again 15 years, and that was a long time with the company. And I'm like, let's take the money. Let's take 6 months off, because that was the contract period that you had to stay away from the company before you could reapply.
Oh, okay.
And I said, I'm going to go to Thailand. I'm going to take 6 months off. And then I may go back to work at Best Buy, see what roles are available. And I had a lot of friends, even up till COVID. I had people with Best Buy saying, "Are you ever interested in coming back?" And I kind of, I would play with them a bit, say maybe, but now no. And Best Buy now is struggling, I hear, and going through more restructures. And as a brick and mortar, and with the growth of online sales, I'm not surprised. Even back then, that was an issue. So yeah, I came here.
Out of interest, at that time when you was at Best Buy, what was your dream job?
I never really had a dream job.
Okay.
I know that seems weird. When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut, like many kids and shit. But I was happy with what I was doing, because from my early 20s, I was making six figures a year when most people were struggling. And that's why I started coming to Thailand so young and so early, was I was making good money legitimately. And I'm not saying other people don't here, but I've also met some people that have made some money here through various means that may not have been as legitimate. So anyways.
Just out of interest, if you had a magic wand or money wasn't an issue, what career would you have decided to do?
Well, one, I don't regret anything I've ever done in my life.
No. I'm not...
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing with it. Probably, that's a tricky question for me. Again, as a kid, I was interested in things like being an actor and a public speaker, which kind of goes into talking and stuff like that. But in retrospect, I'm probably the happiest I've been in my life right now with what I do with the news, because it's mostly a background. A lot of the work is remote. It's 7 days a week. Some days I'm working 14 hours. Some days I'm working 5.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
I know you've heard this a million times, because I enjoy what I'm doing.
Beautiful. That's what we want. That's the
feels,
goal.
Yeah.
That's the jackpot.
So to answer your question, as long as it's something where it doesn't feel like work, that I enjoy what I'm doing. There was a period of time, even when I was in my very early 20s, when I was looking into going to Full Sail University in the States. I never finished college, by the way. I played around with it, but I never did. I don't have anything negative to say about people who did focus on college. I managed to be successful, speaking of next level stuff, without college. And I think there's positives and negatives for everybody there, and that's really a self journey. But for me, I managed to do it mainly through grit and perseverance and willpower.
Yeah.
And going back to that story of 2014, coming here, again, I intended to stay 6 months. I never sold anything. I left my apartment, my car, all my belongings in the States. Sorry, Mom. She knows this. She ended up having to deal with all that and getting rid of it and selling it. Because while I was here, I was approached again, because although I say I'm an ambivert, I'm
Yeah.
generally, especially when I'm one-on-one with people, uh, semi-charismatic, and they're like, dude, we have to put you in a bar. You should
Yeah.
try being a bar manager.
It
And
sounds like, sorry to cut you again, but that was the best thing that happened to you.
I
Losing
don't
that
know.
job. Losing that
I
job.
have no regrets about it.
Yeah.
I do think sometimes what would have happened if I stayed in the States, and I'm
Mm.
one of those people, no regrets wise. If you told me tomorrow that my visa had been revoked, which it just got renewed for another year, guys, sorry, that my visa got revoked and I had to go back to the States, I wouldn't cry about it. I would deal with it and move
Yes.
forward. I see a lot of guys here who
Mm.
run into problems in desperation and they just collapse. And I'm like, no, you just you deal with it, you move on. Was it a
Mm.
great thing? Yeah. I don't regret my time as a bar manager, and I did that for 5 years full time and 4 years part time.
And
My
that,
my first 9 years here, up till 2023, I was still doing some stuff in the bars. It's only really the last year and a half that I've been completely away from all sort of. People still ask me, "Are you willing to do for like during COVID we were closed, so that doesn't really count." And then after COVID, I agreed to some guest appearances because people wanted me to work 1 day a week. And
and
again,
get you absolutely to drink.
I like drinking. And let's go back to that. So moderation. I last night I had 2 beers, 2 big beers, but 2 beers. And that, of course, isn't going to get you drunk. That's not end of the world. Um, Being a bar manager, a lot of guys ruin their health. I'm lucky
Mm.
enough that other than my dental issues, which I will eventually get resolved, and it's only aesthetic, I'm perfectly healthy. I just back in December had another health checkup, and somehow, some way in my early 40s, I have absolutely zero issues. I do some things to stay healthy. We can talk about that
Yeah.
in a bit, but doing no joke, when I was in the bar, I would have an average of 12 beers a day, light beers like San Miguel Lights. But again, that's 12 beers a day, and 10 shots, and 5 or 6 mixed drinks every day. And people are like, that's impossible. Look how skinny. I'm like, it's not impossible.
So
Not what you get
20 to
used to.
30,
Hey,
25
I
to
know.
30 drinks.
I can already see the comments. Oh, you're doing water shots, etc. No, not me. And guys who know me know that if I would actually try to turn down or run away from shots. I was notorious for that. I wouldn't fake a shot. I would try to get out of it or give it to other people. But if I was going to do it, I was going to do it. I like Fireball, by the way.
Why do you have to have a drink? Why, in that role, explain to the audience why
You
you're.
don't have to have a drink. There's some successful bar managers that don't.
Mm.
But in terms of hospitality and in terms of the audience and the customer base that you're dealing with, especially in the type of bar that I worked in, which are heavy drinking bars. Now, I never worked in a go-go, a strip club. I never worked in a nightclub. That's a different type of management. And most of those guys, they don't need to drink because they're more in the background. A lot of the beer bars, which is when I was in, especially in that day.
Soy Six.
Yeah, Soy Six.
And do you want to give the place a shout out?
Sexy in the City.
Yeah.
It was when it was a double unit. It was also a guest house, which helped too. It's not anymore, but I managed a guest house here for 4 years. Only 8 rooms, but I learned a lot by managing a guest house too. A little mini hotel, and I learned a lot with dealing with problems. I learned more here, more running a bar, about HR than 15 years with Best Buy in HR. Just because in America, I dealt with mainly Americans. Yes, I was in DC. Yes, we got a lot of Indian visitors. So I learned very early on how to deal with Indian tourists, but not many from other countries. I've met very few people from the UK and the US, nobody from Australia, nobody from Scandinavia, Germany, absolutely nobody from Russia.
You just said how to deal with Indian tourists. What did you learn from that?
We'll come back to that. So anyways, I just didn't meet a lot of people from different countries because you just don't in your home country, at least in America. Now, America is so diverse with people from different backgrounds and cultures, but people that are from other countries and other cultures entirely that haven't grown up in America, with the exception of some areas you don't meet them. Here in Pattaya, it's such a melting pot from people around the world. And I gained so many skills in understanding different personalities. And going back to Indians, the Indian tourists that we would get in America are very worldly, very different than Indian tourists here. I have some of my closest friends are Indians. We have, with the news, we have close relationships with the local Thai Indian organizations. And I feel that a lot of people misinterpret the Indian. There's a complete difference between Indians at a nightclub on Walking Street. And if you've never gone, I see the comments all the time. Oh, 6 guys, 1 straw. Oh, they're walking down Beach Road in a big group together. Go to an Indian nightclub and watch them throwing out hundreds of thousands of baht in a night. They spend more money than like anybody, but that's a different group than the guys who are on a very limited budget walking down Beach Road at night. So to answer your question, it really depends. One thing I found with Indians in general is that they really like, and especially in sales, and I think you found this with your experience in sales and dealing with Indian clients, is once you land an Indian client, they are your most loyal client. They are great to work with. But to land that client, you really need, they will go through that contract. The negotiations can be very intense, but it's not like some other countries where they'll want discounts after the fact. They'll agree to everything beforehand. And once you've shaken hands, you've agreed, that's pretty much set in stone. Other countries, including myself with Americans, if we're not happy after the contract, we're going to demand discounts and refunds and get angry and cause defamation problems, going back to that. But Indians don't. So, but anyways, going back to the bar, I learned a lot about HR and I learned a lot about myself, and it's fun. A lot of people talk about moving here and being a bar manager. It is fun, but it's an extremely demanding job. And what I mean by that, some people will laugh. Oh, you just sit there and drink and talk to people. Try it. Try it 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, sitting in the same bar without leaving, in the same bar with every single day.
How many women?
That can depend on a bar you're working in. In many bars, they don't handle. When I was a bar manager, we did have to handle staff. I don't want to talk about that aspect too much, but I do want to talk about just about the core job. And it's important to remember that your main job is being a host, being an entertainer.
Yes.
Right now, I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying this podcast.
Thank you.
But imagine doing this podcast and being entertaining like right now, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. Having 30 drinks every day.
How did you manage 5 years?
Just being drunk for 5 years. No,
and then how? Sorry, I'm asking you a question after.
Lots of friends. Really enjoying the friend aspect of it. Made a lot of regular customers. Dodging shots, like I was joking. Couple of things from that. So, when I say that 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, drinking every single day, one of the most difficult parts of the job is going out and having a few drinks for fun is great, but doing it as work. And then the next day coming in at 2:00 in the afternoon, hungover, chugging water, saying, sweet baby Jesus.
I've got another 12 hours.
But here's the worst news. At 2:00, here comes Bob from the UK, who just arrived on his 2 weeks holiday. And Bob is ready to ring that motherfucking bell.
What happens when you ring the bell?
It buys drinks for everybody in the bar. And Bob is ready to spend 10,000 baht. And guess what? This goes back to your original question. Why do you have to drink? If I tell Bob, who's in party mode, who's ready to spend money at your bar.
I saw you for a year.
If I tell Bob, nah, Bob, man. I'm sorry. I'm just drinking water today, bro. I'm not doing a shot with you. Well, what the fuck? Fuck you. I'm going to go drink with Dale down the road or whatever. So I don't want to say you have to drink, but that's hospitality, man. It just is. That's why so many managers do drink with customers. Yes. Some are alcoholics, and I'm lucky that I've never been like an actually dependent alcoholic. I think a lot of it because I drank. I probably came close, But no,
Yeah.
like now I can go, and I do it all the time. I go 3, 4, 5 days with no alcohol, no problem.
It reminds me, it's a little bit like going to your friend's party that is an absolute party animal saying,
Yeah, I'm
I'm
just
not
gonna sit
drinking.
over here and have a
Yeah.
tea.
Yeah.
No, man, I'm not drinking, bro. It's they might invite you because they might be friendly, but they're not going to talk with you. And once it becomes to a point where it's about making money and spending money, um, obviously, if somebody's buying you shots and drinks and stuff, and you're turning it down, that seems rude, especially to
Mm.
people, quite frankly, from the UK. Many people from the UK I met, especially some of the older UK guys, if they offer you a drink or a beer and you say, Scottish especially, you say, no, I'm not drinking. That's rude.
Yeah.
And it's also rude, by the way, in many Asian countries, Chinese especially. We didn't get many Chinese customers, but even in business in China and Japan, it's very common to, Japan's a big one too, to drink.
Mm.
And if you're like you're signing a contract or a deal with Japanese, we've learned this with the news and sales. Many Japanese-owned companies and top-end Japanese CEOs to celebrate the contract will absolutely pour a shot of whiskey, and you'll do it with them. You say, "No, I'm not doing that shot." You could void that entire contract.
Mm. What are some of the life lessons that you learned from being a bar manager? Um,
Never judge a book by its cover. I kind of knew that before, but really did it as a bar manager. Is a lot of times people get this. We had it at Best Buy too. Somebody would walk in, you know, in dirty shorts, a dirty singlet, and the girls and somebody, your staff, your sales staff at Best Buy would say, "Oh, this guy's not going to spend any money." You might be surprised.
mm.
In fact, the guys at Best Buy, anyways, that usually came in well dressed, wearing suits and shit, they were ripping you off. They were stealing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic, but
Yeah.
that's because people don't think those folks are ever going to steal. So professional thieves often go out of their way to make themselves. That's an old Best Buy asset prevention thing.
Mm.
Um, they'll send in somebody that like looks like this to walk around the store so that everybody in the building is looking at them, and the person's acting
Ah.
kind of shady, like doing this shit. So everybody's looking at them, and meanwhile, you in a suit are walking through there just cutting laptop wires and loading them up in a bag
Mm.
because nobody
Mm.
thinks it'll be like a 50-year-old guy. Nobody will think he's doing it. So
Mm.
yeah, you don't know who's going to be a great customer. Number two, and this is advice I have for bar managers in Pattaya now. If you see this clip, um, your customer that buys one water is just as important as your customers that ring in the bell 40 times. Here's why. You don't know if that guy tomorrow is going to be your bell ringer. Number two, you don't know who he's going to talk to. I had so many guys that people would call a cheap Charlie, a term here for somebody who's on a tight budget or might come in and buy one drink and might not be a big spender. A lot of the Thai staff don't understand this either. Is I would have to tell them so many times. It's like, look, this, you don't know. They could tell their friend who is a big spender, hey, go meet Adam, go meet AJ. I had that so many times. Uh, yeah, where somebody, he's cheap, his friends aren't, and it all rolls up and it's all good vibes at the end of the day.
Mm. And there's no need to act or put on a face, or you're
No,
just great customer service regardless.
yeah, but I think that's part of the reason I did it so long is I'm awkward, I'm goofy, I talk a lot, I'm a bit weird, I'm a lot weird, but most people that meet me, it worked out at the end of the day, and they liked coming and talk to me. The managers that try to act cool on purpose, I find generally fail. The guys that try to act too formal, like they're in a customer, good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the Big Titty Go Go. I'm like, that's not why it's like, that's kind of weird. I mean, you might not want to shake my hand right now. No, you just got to be, hey man, what's up? Where you from, bro? Oh yeah, you're from. Of course, U.S. was easy, but I eventually became pretty good with people with the U.K. having
Mm.
different topics and stuff. Anyways, the last thing I learned from the bars was, and it kind of ties into those two, is and this is something I think many business owners in Pattaya, both Thai and foreigner, need to remember, is the long term. I think I learned this from Best Buy too. Is the long term value of a client or customer. Um, too many times people will look at somebody that's ringing the bell and spending a lot of money today, and they'll come in one day and buy only a water.
Mm.
And they're not, and all of a sudden the staff will get upset. Or this person who's been a great customer for years will come in and have a problem. And especially some staff that's not trained on how to deal with shades of gray
Mm.
will just lose their fucking minds and start screaming and yelling at a guy that spent hundreds of thousands of bought in your business over the years. So there's that value. So yeah, I learned a lot about, like I said, about like cultures, dealing with different people, how different people respond. Like growing up in America and being in American retail, you've never been to America, but American customer service is very, very intense, especially at restaurants. I know a lot of that's due to the tipping, controversial tipping culture, but it's just very, very, lots of talking, lots of friendliness, lots of, hey, how you doing today? What's your name? Where are you from? And I do have that aspect.
Okay.
But then there's people from countries like Russia and Germany, especially Eastern Germany. They don't appreciate that. They would rather just,
Mm.
they don't want to talk to you, and that's fine. I learned a lot of skills on how to recognize who wants to chit chat with
Ah.
me, who doesn't.
Sensing the vibes.
Yeah. In bars, a lot of guys come here and they're terrified. They're terrified of the woman. Or the boys, depending on where you're going. They're terrified to speak to them.
Mm.
Many guys come here, quite frankly, because they have personality problems at home, woman problems at home. Some guys come here broken, and I mean that by like they're divorced, widowed. They hear about Pattaya for another opportunity, and they just don't know how to deal with it. So I became really good at recognizing guys that are sitting there afraid. Like, hey man, what's up? Hey, you okay? Sometimes many guys just want somebody to talk to, and there's very few Thai staff members at most of the bars here who speak fluent enough English to be able to just shoot the shit.
I hear you. What would you say to your younger version, or someone that's watching this right now that's considering either visiting Thailand or moving to Thailand, that's a little bit bored of their home country and wants an adventure?
So, like I said, I never intended to move here, but I also moved here with a year of severance and about the same amount saved. So I moved here, being transparent, with just under 200,000 US dollars.
Thank you for sharing.
I meet a lot of people who move here. I've met a guy who moved here with less than 100 US dollars. It worked out.
How did
But
it work out for him?
He hustled.
Yes.
He hustled. He had a lot of grit.
Okay.
But I've also met a lot of guys who move here with as much money as I have who end up going home too.
Yeah.
So like for my first year, I didn't need to work. Actually, for like my first 2.5, almost 3 years, I rang my own bell sometimes and paid for it. I just didn't need to. I did it because I was bored. I've always thought that I will probably never retire.
I would feel the same as well.
I like doing something.
Mm.
I know guys here that do absolutely nothing every single day except drink or just watch movies and Netflix, and they're happy with that. That's cool. That's up to them. I can't do that. My father is in his mid 80s, as I mentioned, and still works. He owns a bunch, I think like 20 now,
Really?
of car dealerships in Florida, and most of his job is on the phone, but he helps manage and run those still to this day. He's one of those people that I think if he ever just, people are like, oh, you should just retire and just, that's not
Just
him.
relax, just do nothing.
I can't do that.
No.
When I came here, I wasn't working. I was just spending money and partying every day. I'm like, this is boring. So the bar did give me something to do. Now, when I got into the news, I had spent most of my money over several years. And during COVID, and I've shared this with a few people, my income became very, very restricted with the bars closed, with the news just kind of having started up seriously, without me having that savings I had relied on before. And I'll get back to your question of what people should have. During COVID, I was living on like 500 baht a day. And by the way, 500 baht a day is about normal, but I was like forced to. It's about normal for people that don't drink that much, don't smoke. I don't smoke at all, never have. I don't vape. I don't use cannabis, which is decriminalized here in common. So I save money on all those things. And I eat mostly 7-Eleven or Thai food carts. I don't often eat, although I went to Prime Burger yesterday. I had a great burger. But I don't often eat at like mid-range restaurants. So yeah, you do that, you can do 500 baht a day. But during
Yes.
COVID, I would do like 100 to 200 baht a day sometimes, just very tight on money.
Yeah.
So number one, have a plan. Have a plan for your money, or have a plan for where it comes from. Savings, I'm now back at the point where I'm actually saving money again, because, you know, before COVID hit, like many people around the world, I just thought it was a never ending, you know, my money was just coming in every month. All these businesses were doing great. There was absolutely, we saw no way whatsoever that this income could stop. And it fucking stopped for everybody. Worldwide, I know so many people struggled. But as a foreigner in Thailand, I know many people in some Western countries got, especially some Scandinavian countries, got some real, I don't know what the UK did, I don't think much. Got some really nice government monies back for losing
I
their
had
job.
like 20 grand to keep my business going. 25, 20,
That's,
20
that's
or
a lot
25.
better than I thought. The US gave a couple $1,000s. It wasn't great. And Thailand gave 7,000 baht, not to foreigners.
And that was for the whole duration.
Pretty much.
Oh, okay.
There were some things for some bigger companies and stuff, but for the average person. So my point is this. People come here and you don't have a lifeline in Thailand. You've got to have strong willpower. You've got to have an escape plan if needed, money if there is an emergency to leave. I cannot stress this enough. I'm going to sound like your father here to people in comments, but for the love of God, have fucking health insurance. Like I said, I've never had a health issue here, knock on wood, but I have. I mean, I have a work permit and work visa, so I have the Thai health insurance regardless. But have health insurance, have options. Even if it's a Thai insurance, you should have others too. But have insurance and have options. Keep yourself busy if you come to Thailand. Do not just come here and go to the clubs and the girls and the drinking every single day. I have many hobbies, reading, video games. I still like news itself. I'm a big horror movie buff. I'm getting into collections and collectibles and things like that too. So
What sort of collectibles?
Some people would call them action figures, but collectibles, yes.
Interesting.
So there's different hobbies and things. My biggest hobby is probably video games. It just helps me relax. Mostly RPGs. Baldur's Gate 3 was fantastic. Avowed is getting mixed reviews, but I'm going to try that next soon. And Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, things like that you probably have no interest in. But anyways, yeah, just to give people an idea.
Yes, thank you.
Have hobbies. My other hobby is walking, and that's how I stay fit. I don't like lifting. I don't like the gym, even though, you know, Rage Fight Academy, the news is associated with it. I'm not into lifting. I'm not into gym classes. So I walk everywhere. I walk an average of 10 to 15,000 steps a day.
Why should they choose Thailand? What if they're thinking about coming to Thailand or anywhere else? Why should they specifically choose Thailand? What are some of the reasons you feel?
You know, honestly, I think that can be a tricky question because I don't think Thailand is for everybody. I don't. I think the culture shock and the way of living, that's why I started with having a lifeline for it. Having been here and going into my 12th year now and coming here at a fairly young age, there were I made so many mistakes, so many errors. There were some I didn't make that are quick ways to go back home. Never, ever get a fucking overstay. Be here legal. Have health insurance for emergencies. If you drive, I don't drive at all. I don't drive a motorbike. I walk. I love walking. And part of the news is I see what you guys don't every day. I see, and I've seen it in person, the uncensored, unedited photos. It's part of our job every day because our reporters just take photos of what's in the field. I see the bloodied photos of people mashed into pieces on the pavement every day. So that makes me not want to do it. So don't drive drunk. And if you do drive, learn how to do it before you come here. This is a completely different aspect of driving in the UK and other countries. It's very not defensive. It's very offensive driving. Stay the fuck away from drugs. I can't tell you how many people here, get addicted to illegal drugs or get involved with it or think that's a way to stay here and make money. And I have acquaintances of mine who have ended up in the prisons and stuff here because of their drug use. That's not something anybody wants to do. So it's not for everybody.
Who is that everybody?
Huh?
Like when you say you don't think it's for everybody, who do you think isn't it? Who do you feel like the character doesn't suit Thailand?
People with untreated mental health issues, which is why I said a lot of
Ah.
people come here broken and they fall into the first relationship or the first girl that gives, or boy or whatever, that gives them attention. And, like I said, I was a bit lucky that I came here coming out of a relationship unbroken, where I was determined not to get into another relationship. I had zero interest in it. Many guys come here like desperate for companionship. I was the opposite. And I think that's the wrong type.
I'm with you.
If it happens, it happens. But some of these guys come here and they end up losing everything. They lose their entire fortune, their entire savings, buying homes. And some, by the way, like myself, I made a lot of mistakes and I got stronger from them. Some do get through that. But I think they need to realize ahead of time that like I said earlier, there's no lifelines here. You need to have your own lifeline. If you need to find your circle of trust. I have 2 or 3 people that I work very closely with and that I trust. I know everybody. A lot of people know me, but I keep my actual circle very small of who I hang out with and who I talk to. So yeah, people that this is not for. People that like very, very structured, a structured environment with like Australia, with lots and lots of rules and policies, and or like America, and lots of guarantees that stuff is going to be done in a very short period of time.
Health and safety.
Yeah, you're not going to get that here.
Yeah.
Thailand has their infamous Mai Pen Lai, which is just basically no worries. Personality types that don't work in Thailand.
Okay.
Like I said, people with mental health issues, people that don't have a lifeline. Thailand does not have that lifeline for most people. You should have trusted friends and trusted people that you sit through. Willpower or grit, as I call it, are very important to Thailand. And what before we took a brief break, we were talking about Mai Pen Lai and the attitude in Thailand of it's no big deal, just carry on.
Sabai.
No worries. That's a struggle for many people from many countries, including many Americans, but some people from the UK too. You know what? I go to a restaurant. I order a vodka tonic, and they bring me a beer. I'm just going to drink the beer. But that's the Mai Pen Lai attitude. I know other people say, no, I'm going to demand my proper drink. I'm going to get, okay, if you can do it politely, but that's an idea of Mai Pen Lai. I can't tell you how often I've seen people, where's my orange juice? There's only 25 beans on this plate. People losing their mind about very minor things. And lots of those people don't last long here. They don't. It's Thais, in the Thai environment, you're not insulting. Again, going back to defamation that we talked about earlier, it's just kind of dealing with it and going on with it. If you have a very aggressive, very abrasive personality, it can be a tough place. And I have some friends who have very, very demanding, aggressive, abrasive personalities. They're great people. They just demand a lot. And there are places in Thailand for them, and like places that are structured to that. But like Western-owned restaurants or larger corporations. But if you go to a roadside street cart and you lose your mind, or as we call it in America, you go into Karen mode, you're not going to get the American style of customer service. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're almost never going to get a sorry from a Thai-owned business. I'm so sorry. I apologize. That's my fault. Let's make this right. You're going to get Why you yak yak? What's the problem here? You fuck off. And that shocks people. They'll literally throw you out of their business.
I've got to say, I've never seen that before in Thailand.
I sure have.
Well, you've been here a lot longer than me.
I sure have.
Can you give me your top 5 most valuable things that Thailand offers and that you rate and that is valuable to you?
Top 5.
Top 5.
I'm going to keep this Pattaya specific because, quite frankly, although I have traveled, I did a 3-week road trip in 2023 to Isan, and I did eventually make it to Bangkok. I've mostly been in Pattaya. I've never been to Phuket. I've never been to Chiang Mai.
And the rest of Asia?
I've been to a couple places. I've been to Laos. I've been to South Korea. I've been to Japan.
Okay.
But I've never been to Cambodia or the
Vietnam.
Philippines or Vietnam.
Yeah. Okay.
So top 5 things that I like about Pattaya and southern Thailand. The temperature goes back to me talking about Sarasota. I hate cold weather. If I never see snow again, it would be too soon. So I really like the warm temperature. I wear jeans almost every day. That shocks people, partly because I'm so pale. So if I don't wear jeans, I'm going to burn easily.
Okay.
But I'm used to it. You know, I'm used to wearing jeans. So weather, temperature.
Yes.
In Pattaya specifically, I walk everywhere, ease of getting around.
Yes.
Easy public transportation. I do take motorbike taxis sometimes, but so-called bot buses or song taus are everywhere.
Very condensed.
Only 10 baht. Yep.
City.
Very condensed, but I walk from Jomtien to like central Pattaya a couple times a week, and it's only about a 40-minute walk. It's easy to do. Yeah, the sidewalks aren't the best, but as long as you're not shit drunk and like stumbling over holes, you're okay. So that's part of it. The Mai Pen Lai attitude. I like that attitude.
Yes,
I like the versus having Karens, versus having too many rules and licenses. Thailand, by the way, has more laws than almost anywhere. People are surprised. Like everything's illegal. Everything. Much more than like Australia, UK, etc. But none of it's enforced. Some people might not like me saying that.
Shall we keep that in or shall we cut that out, AJ?
No, it's all right. Some of it's enforced. Well, no, it's okay. When I say none of it's enforced, that's not true. Yeah, we might cut that one. But some of it is enforced. And some of it is a Mai Pen Lai attitude where it's not as enforced. And quite frankly, if you're not causing trouble and you're not causing drama, it's not that big a deal. If you are causing trouble and causing drama, absolutely it's going to be enforced. Thais are actually very, very good at enforcing things like criminals in their country, deportation. So many people. Oh, that's another reason you shouldn't come to Thailand. You're a criminal or a fugitive in your own country. It's a horrible place to come. We write about it every day. Thailand has great extradition agreements. They are great, believe it or not, when they want to. The police are money at tracking down criminals here. But police are going to like I said that if they're watching that. But it's true. Police and immigration are really damn good at their jobs. So yeah, if you're Mai Pen Lai and you're not causing any serious problems, and it's minor things like drinking in public, which is technically illegal, or driving your motorbike without a shirt, which is technically illegal, yeah, okay, that's not a big deal. But if you're doing drugs and you're causing problems and you're hurting Thai people and Thai culture, absolutely, you're going to get the fuck out of here, and I agree with that. So that's 3, the Mai Pen Lai culture. 4, the fact that it is a 7-day-a-week party. I still like that. I like that I can go out. I like that I can be home on a Monday night where, except for maybe Miami and Vegas in the States, everything's closed, nothing's going on. And if I want to go to a nightclub, it's going to be packed. Other than a couple religious holidays here and then, Pattaya, Bangkok, Phuket, 7 days a week, even Sunday and Monday, it's a party.
So it's like New Year.
It's every day. It's a party. I like that aspect. Yeah. That I can go out every day. 5 is I like the melting pot here. Going back to talking about people from around the world. This is one of the best cities in the world for people watching. I will sometimes, like I joked about sitting on the beach with a beer. I'll do that and just watch people. It's amazing what you can see. It's part of why I walk too. Slow yourself down. The pace of living here should be slow. And too many people are still high. Your self-pace, your self-motivation, that should still be fast. But too many people miss, they forget to slow down, smell the roses, drink the coffee, and look around. You're zooming around on motorbikes. You're jumping from point A to point B. There's so much to see and so much to do here. People are shocked when I tell them about all the different activities and places, or we use the controversial family-friendly Pattaya. There's a shitload to do here for families. So much.
They have so much going on at the
Yeah,
Central Mall and stuff
you,
like that.
you've learned that in your time here.
Yeah.
Is a lot of times the guys who only sit in bars think the only thing to do here is bars, and the entertainment and nightlife and the adult entertainment aspect. Yeah, if that's all you do. But I've also met people, families that go to places like where you've been there with me, like the Central Amazon Resort, in
Yes.
Naklua, with the giant kids activities and the water parks. And there's huge resorts like that in Bang Sarai,
Stunning.
where there's so much to do for kids and families that they never see. These people come to Thailand every year and they have no idea about the bar aspect. It's a completely different thing. So that melting pot.
Yeah. Just no prejudice.
Yeah.
And total respect and no racism. Yeah.
Am I out of 6? A bonus for you.
Go for
and
it.
The bonus is I like events. There's always something going on in Pattaya. A lot of expats hate the fact that every weekend is some sort of festival or event or thing happening. I like it. I like that there's always something happening in town. Versus I've been in big cities and small cities. Being in a city, I think you come from a small place where you might have one festival or event a year. Here, I know the expats, many of them groan about it. But again, this is a tourism town. 90%, and it's actually 89, but 89% of the GDP in Pattaya comes from tourism. It's a transient population here. So, of course, you always want something happening for all those people coming in and out every week. Those parties every week, that's not for you who has lived here 30 years. The guy who's bored of bars, oh God, it's another black dress party. That's not for you. That's for the guy here on holiday once a year for 7 days. That's for him. You might not like it, but it's not for you. So, yeah.
Thank you, AJ. I really do appreciate that. So we're coming to the end shortly. Really appreciate your time, AJ.
Cool.
What philosophies have stuck with you throughout your childhood? Well, that you've learned, that you hold on to now, that maybe you would like to pass down to the world?
I don't judge other people. And like I said earlier, everybody has their different paths and things that they do on life. Like I said, I don't regret anything I've done in my life. I've never done anything seriously bad. I mean, people were teasing, oh, AJ's been out of America so long. He must have trouble. Check my background check. You're welcome to. No issues, buddy. Besides that, no regrets in the philosophy, it's be true to yourself. I know that sounds generic, but being an ambivert, being independent, at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I feel is right for me. And here's something that you'll find interesting. In my first 2 or 3 years here, despite maybe in spite of having a lot of money, I had a lot of mental health issues. And I think a lot of people struggle with this. I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about that. And when I mean mental health issues, I've never been depressed. I've never been, and I met people here who have. I just mean the amount of alcohol, paranoia at times, thinking about what other people were, too worried about what other people were thinking, letting the alcohol get to me too much, letting the party atmosphere get to me too much, that I was losing sight at the end of the day of who I was. And luckily, I got some good help from some friends. I never saw a psychiatrist or anything. I wasn't at that level. But I recognized that I was going down a tricky route. And I think when people hear the words mental health issue, they think of somebody who's like a schizophrenic or seriously depressed or suicidal. And that's not what I mean. Mental health can just be ups and downs. It can be always ups every single day, where you lose sight of who you are. Because of the crazy environment that Pattaya and the nightlife in the area can be. That's why I think it's so important to have other hobbies and other things that you do here, besides that, to get yourself going. So, I think it's very important, especially for those who want to come long term, that they keep an eye on their mental health. They find some good friends who can let them know if they're struggling in one way or the other. And I don't think, as adults or as men, that we should be afraid of talking about mental health. It should not be a topic that people should be afraid of, because unfortunately, I've seen so many people succumb to those issues in my decade here. And so I think that would be my closing philosophy, and probably my closing thing from there is, if you really want to make it in Thailand, so many guys take care of their physical health here. So many guys go to the gym, so many guys work out all the time, but they forget to focus on their mental health.
Which is the most vital.
Yeah, they forget to keep their brain healthy, to keep learning, to do other things, and just get drunk every day and go out to the clubs. And that pays a toll, man. And especially in my first 2 years, I had to stop myself. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? I mean, really, I mean, I've been drunk every day for a year. I mean, what the fuck am I doing? So you have to have a hard conversation. I was able to have that hard conversation with myself, but a lot of people are not. And I think, don't be afraid to. Yeah.
Thank you. One more question I always put out there is, what are some of your rock bottom times of your life that you've really struggled with? If you don't mind sharing that one. Yeah.
Quite honestly, I think I've already answered that. Other than that, in the States, there was a very brief period of time between moving. I was still working at Best Buy, but this was in my very early 20s, where moving between different people, and my second failed long-term relationship at that time, where I ended up living I had a big, it wasn't that uncomfortable, but I had a giant Cadillac.
Okay.
And I lived in my car for, I think I told you that before privately, but I was basically homeless. You consider homeless in America not being in an apartment or a home. I was never street homeless, but I lived in my car for a couple months.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I don't think I've ever been what you could call depressed. I've been paranoid before, but I've never been depressed. And by the way, that's why I don't use cannabis. Despite the decriminalization and stuff here, for me, it doesn't work for me. It makes me paranoid.
Yeah.
Alcohol doesn't.
How did you get out of that homeless?
Well, I still had a job, luckily, so I just saved up money for 6 months till I could pay. But I'll tell you, it was more boring than anything. You're just living in the back, sleeping in a car, trying to pretend to people you're not sleeping in a car. I joined a gym. I didn't work out, you know me, but I just joined it to shower every day and to clean up and shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was probably part of it. And honestly, during COVID, here, when, as mentioned, we were closed basically for 2 years, the borders were closed. I know a lot of people went through mental health issues and financial issues during that period, and their businesses were at risk, or they lost their businesses. That was a dark period. Nobody knew when it was going to end. And it stretched, again, as I have already said, for a year longer here than it did in other places. And people were just, that was a dark, dark time, because you didn't know what to do. Never once during COVID, never once did I say, you know what, I think I'm going to go back to America. I didn't say that.
So what's it like now, seeing that Pattaya and Thailand have recovered? Is there a sense of appreciating it more?
I think I appreciated it more seeing it at its darkest, and seeing people come together, seeing the charity organizations. As I said earlier, I took things for granted. I blew money all the time. I had a lot of money. I made a lot of money. As a bar manager, by the way, bar managers are not as common now as they used to be. Now, a lot of bars have moved to mama sans and stuff. But a good bar manager, at some places, which I did, again, being transparent, would make a percentage of the profit of their bar, so that the better the bar did, the better they did. So I made very good money as a bar manager, on top of having very good savings. So I would run the bar for 12 hours, and then I'd go out to Insomnia and to Flex Club and spend 20,000 baht in a night, every night. I'm not bullshitting you
Well,
for like 6 months in a row. And that was cool. But now that you have that time, but I had that perspective of everything shut, being the guy in I Am Legend, walking down the street with all the businesses done and having 200 baht in my pocket. Luckily, everything was shut. So, you don't have anything to spend it on anyway. I think that perspective was important to me. So there you go.
thank you so much for sharing your
Thanks for
story,
having me.
AJ. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else you'd like to finish with?
So I'll just kind of finish it how we began, how you put me on the spot. Once again, thank you each and every single person for tuning in today to the Next Level Podcast. We hope to see you next time on our next podcast coming in the very near future. And hey, you never know who might be on. Let us know how we did today in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. And hey, so you get those regular notifications, that little alarm, that little subscription bell, hit that baby too. Have a great day. Take care of yourselves.
Beautiful. Thank you, AJ. We normally finish with a meditation, but it's been a longer episode than normal. So, AJ, we will simply have 3 deep inhales and exhales and truly appreciate the fact that we are here alive and we have shared our stories, shared our wisdom, and yeah, we live to share the story. Okay. Inhale the good shit and exhale the bad. And again, really appreciate the air we are breathing and give thanks for life. Once again, thank you again, AJ. Much love. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks,
here.
everybody.
Much love. Thank you for
appreciate
tuning in,
it.
guys. If you
ThePattayaNews.com,
Go for it.
Pattaya News Facebook, Pattaya News TikTok, Pattaya News Blue Sky, Pattaya News everything. Can see it from there. We appreciate your support. I know today I talked a lot about the news, but again, from earlier in the broadcast, if you want to just say hi to me, I'm at the Ringside Cafe every Tuesday, 3 to 5. I'll leave a comment.
sell that with me a little bit. What's that meeting like?
It's basically just what we did today. Talk about the news, talking about what's going on, chatting, answering people's questions. It is not for people with serious news or defamation problems. Email me for that, editor@thepathayanews.com.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
If you've enjoyed the podcast, please let me know in the comments section. If you have any questions for me, let me know. If you want some one-on-one coaching with me, drop me a message on my Instagram, or you can book it in on one of my links in the link section. If you would like to support what I'm doing right here, you can hit the link that says buy me a coffee. It would be really appreciated. Much love. Once again, thank you for tuning in.